All right, totals for week 31. Total expenses were $1,612 at 85 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,450 at $2.35 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $2,837 at $1.50 per mile. Welcome back to Trucking the Seven Seas. This is episode number 105, and in this episode, we're going to cover week 31 and 32 of running my own authority. For this episode, we have two fairly profitable weeks, but we don't actually get that many miles in. If you're new to this channel, welcome. I started this channel in order to show exactly what truck drivers make. We started as a company driver, working for night transportation, moved on to a lease operator, working for night transportation, then an owner-operator, leased on to Landstar, and now we are an owner-operator running our own authority. I show all of the loads I take, what the revenue is, what the expenses are, and what my net cash flow is, and I compile all of this information that I put into a spreadsheet that I share with you at the end of every video. So if this is a topic that interests you, follow the channel. But last episode, we left off in Lebanon, Kentucky. So we dropped a load out in Lebanon, Kentucky on a Friday, and then we were looking for another one, preferably about 600 miles or something like that. Just trying to stay in the Midwest. The Midwest is a very good market right now. In fact, it's the best market in the US, so I just want to stay kind of in the heart of the Midwest. So I was looking around and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this load is going from Bardstown, Kentucky to Marysville, Michigan. 445 loaded miles, 25 empty miles, paid $1,100 at $2.47 per mile. Yeah, so a little bit short on the mileage. It's hard to find a long load in the Midwest for the weekend while maintaining your presence in the Midwest. So this is pretty much what I've been doing lately, is just grabbing something like 400 or 500, 600 miles, something like that. And I just want to wake up in the Midwest on Monday because it's just really good out here right now. So I'm actually fine with this. Yeah, a little bit longer load, a little bit higher revenue load would be better, but it's hard to find those high revenue loads, high mileage loads while staying in like the heart of the Midwest. So this is what I ended up booking. Thought it was totally fine, reasonable enough, and just taking like a day and a half long reset over the weekends is fine by me. So this is what we ended up booking, and now we're headed to Marysville, Michigan. Let's go. All right, so we dropped that Marysville, Michigan load on Monday. So we're looking for another one. So it was Monday, so just about anything was fine. Just anywhere in the Midwest is good. I mean, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, anything like that is totally fine. So I was looking around and I ended up finding this load right here. So this load is picking up in Pontiac, Michigan, going to Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. 572 loaded miles, 50 empty miles. Pays $1,350 at $2.36 per mile. Yeah, so this one, totally fine. Pretty good on the rate per mile, pretty good on the revenue, pretty good on the mileage. Still keeps me in the heart of the Midwest. Chippewa Falls, that's Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is totally fine. And recently, Wisconsin has been really, really, really good. So I'm totally fine going there, and I thought this one was excellent. And also, this one allows you, like, one of the routes I've always wanted to do is go the northern route. Through like northern Michigan, right? So you got the southern route through Chicago, but then there's a northern route through Mackinac City, and you go over that bridge there. And it's been something I've been wanting to do for a while, and I was looking at the route, and yeah, the Chicago run saves you like 50 miles, but given the pickup and drop, going the northern route is fine. Oh, this one also had a stop in Appleton, Wisconsin. I forgot to mention that. So there's another stop in Appleton, Wisconsin. So this is a two-stopper actually. So it picks up in Pontiac, stops in Appleton, and then stops and then drops in Chippewa Falls. So given that, going the northern route through upstate Michigan is totally fine. It adds like 50 miles onto the route, but you don't have to drive through Chicago. And that's what I ended up doing. So I thought that was kind of a fun thing, and I thought it was totally fine. So that's what we ended up doing. So now we are headed to Appleton, Wisconsin, and then Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. Let's go. All right, so we dropped that load out in Chippewa Falls, then look for another one. Again, just staying in the Midwest. Anything in the Midwest is fine, and we ended up finding this one right here. So this one's going from Eau Claire, Wisconsin to Toledo, Ohio. 566 loaded miles, 12 empty miles. Pays $1,300 at $230 per mile. Yep, so this one's fine. Eau Claire, just down the road, about 12 miles away. Going to Toledo, Ohio. Toledo, Ohio has traditionally been a really good market, so totally fine. $230 per mile, $1,300 for a one-day load. I mean, if I could just run stuff like this all day, every day, we'd be doing pretty good. I'd be okay with that. You want to shoot for about $1,000 of revenue per day, and at least $2 per mile in this market. That's about what you're going to get with the dry van. So this one definitely hits that, and I'm more than happy to grab this. So this is what we ended up booking, and now we're headed to Toledo, Ohio. Let's go. All right, so we dropped that load in Toledo, Ohio. Then we were looking for another one, and traditionally, Ohio has been a very good market for me. But on this particular day, I was having issues finding anything good/long. So I was looking around, and it took me quite a few hours to actually find something decent. I was making a lot of offers out there, but just couldn't find much. So that's kind of interesting. And when I look at the loads going in to loads going out ratio in Ohio, it's actually not that good anymore. It's about equilibrium. So for every one load going in, there's about one load going out, which is fine enough. But given that the Midwest it's generally there aren't enough trucks, being in an equilibrium market is not that good. So what I'm realizing is that Ohio is actually not that good. I mean, it's okay, but this experience, and then when I look at the data, kind of is indicating that Ohio actually isn't that good. It's not nearly as good as Wisconsin. It's not as good as Indiana. Michigan's better. So there's a lot of places that are better, and this load started to bring that to my attention. So couldn't find much, and I ended up booking this load right over here. So this one's going from Maumee, Ohio to Hebron, Kentucky, which is kind of by Cincinnati. 211 mile loaded miles, 10 empty miles. Pays $700 at $332 per mile. So this one, it's fine. Short load. I dropped it on Thursday. Was when I dropped this one, or maybe Friday, something like that. $332 per mile, $700. Not quite the revenue you want, but good on the rate per mile. But yeah, this Ohio is not as good as it has traditionally been, and I'm starting to take that into account. Maybe I don't want to go over there, or maybe I just deadhead a little bit further to, like, I don't know, Detroit or Kalamazoo or Fort Wayne or Indianapolis or something like that when I'm in this sort of region. So yeah, just a note there, Ohio not as good as some of the other Midwest states, which is kind of rare because traditionally Ohio has been quite good. But in this one, we're headed to Hebron, Kentucky, which is pretty much Cincinnati, so we're still kind of staying in Ohio, but it is what it is. Let's go to Hebron, Kentucky. Okay, so I dropped that load out in Hebron, Kentucky, and then I dropped it on a Friday, so I was looking for a weekend load, and looking around, and once again, couldn't find much. So this is basically Cincinnati market, and yeah, I just could not find a whole lot, which is kind of surprising. Usually this is a perfectly fine market. So couldn't find much, headed to the Midwest. So I started to expand the search, expand my qualifications for a weekend load, I guess. So yeah, looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one's headed from Lewisburg, Ohio to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Normally I don't run Pennsylvania/New Jersey, but I will do it from time to time. And given the circumstances, this one was fine. So this one was 434 loaded miles, 73 empty miles. Paid $13.50 at $3.11 per mile, which if you're looking at it, that might seem excellent, but you have to understand that Pennsylvania is not that good coming out. So if you want to go from Pennsylvania or New Jersey back to the Midwest, it's not going to pay that good. So this one paid fine, and okay, it was a somewhat okay weekend load. So this was the weekend load. It's about all I could find. But yeah, not all that great. Didn't necessarily want to go to Pennsylvania, but it was kind of interesting because I did get to go to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is the Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, with the where the battle happened. So I did get quite a few good photos. So I guess I'll just do a little snapshot right now. Yeah, so it was kind of cool going over there. Got to see all the historical sites. I just rode my bike around the whole thing. So that was kind of cool, but in terms of trucking, not that great of a load in my opinion. But either way, that's what we ended up booking. Get to go to Gettysburg, take about a day and a half reset, go ride around, and that's what we ended up doing. So now we're headed to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Let's go. Alright, so we dropped that load out in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Then we were looking for another one. At this point, it was a Monday, so I'm trying to get back to the Midwest as fast as possible. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right over here. So this one's picking up in Mercersburg, Pennsylvania, going to Orrville, Ohio. 278 loaded miles, 45 empty miles, paid $900 at $324 per mile. Yeah, so this one was, it's okay. It gets me back to the Midwest. Yeah, it pays fine. There are tolls on this road is part of the problem. So you're looking at these rates, and there's expensive tolls on this one. However, on this particular one, I decided to avoid the tolls and go the 68, which is kind of through West Virginia. And that was a fine route, but the big issue with this load right here was it was very heavy. So Pennsylvania / West Virginia, very, very hilly. You tend to want to avoid the heavy loads. And this one was most certainly heavy. It was like 79,000 pounds, which I was like, okay, whatever. It got me back to the Midwest, and I was just trying to get there. And it was like, yeah, okay, it gets me out of here. This is about as bad as the best load I could find. Not great. I certainly burned a lot more fuel than I normally would haul on this thing, but it got me back to the Midwest. So we're going back to Ohio, and then once I'm in Ohio, I'm just going to book something to get me to a better area of the Midwest. So this is what we ended up booking, and now we're headed to Orrville, Ohio. Let's go. Okay, so we dropped that load out in Orrville, Ohio. Then we were looking for another one, and I'm trying to get west at this point to Indiana, Wisconsin, maybe Minneapolis, Iowa, or maybe even Missouri or something like that. Just get a little further west away from Ohio, because it's just not that good here. So I was looking around, and I ended up finding this load right here. This one's going from Findlay, Ohio to Prescott, Wisconsin. 675 loaded miles, 114 empty miles. Paid $1,400 at $2.07 per mile. Yeah, so this one was totally fine. Gets me back to Wisconsin, which Wisconsin is just very hot, as I already mentioned, so I'm fine doing this. $2 per mile, 675 miles. Prescott, Wisconsin is actually pretty close to Eau Claire, where I was before. And it's also very close to Minneapolis as well, so that's fine. I thought this one was good enough. Got me out of Ohio, which I don't know what's going on with Ohio. It's just not that good right now. And yeah, thought it was totally fine. So we grabbed this one, and now we're headed to Prescott, Wisconsin. Let's go. Okay, dropped the load out in Prescott, Wisconsin, and then it was a Friday. So I was looking for another one, and I ended up finding a load picking up in Ellsworth, Wisconsin, and going to Fort Wayne, Indiana. However, that load is not going to make the paycheck, so we are going to get into the spreadsheet right now. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to cover week 31 and 32. So let's do it. For week 31, we did 4 loads. In those 4 loads, we got 1,891 miles, paid a total of $4,450 at $2.35 per mile. Fuel expenses, we fueled up 3 times. In those 3 times, we paid $1,073 at 57 cents per mile. And there were no maintenance expenses this week. Other expenses, tolls $282, scales $34, parking $23, tools $74 for $339 at 18 cents per mile. Fixed costs, email $8, DAT subscription $149, truck stop subscription $42 for a total of $199 at 11 cents per mile. Alright, totals for week 31. Total expenses were $1,612 at 85 cents per mile. Total revenue was $4,450 at $2.35 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $2,837 at $1.50 per mile. All right, caveats for week 31. I'd say the big caveat is just the low mileage and high revenue. So, there's a balance between getting high revenue and rate per mile and mileage. On this particular week, I just did quite a few shortish loads at pretty good rate per mile, and my revenue ended up being okay. So, I think it's probably slightly better to run slightly longer loads and get a higher revenue and lower rate per mile than do specifically this. And I didn't necessarily intend to do this. It's just the way the cookie crumble. It's just how things worked out this week. And it is kind of hard to do the longer runs in the Midwest just because it's a decent geographical region, but it's not that huge, So finding these 1,000-mile loads in the Midwest is really difficult. I mean, the only 1,000-mile run you could do in the Midwest is going from like Cleveland, Ohio to like Kansas City, Missouri, and that's not even 1,000 miles. I think it's only like 800 miles, or maybe Cleveland, Ohio to like Minneapolis or something like that. It's hard to find like a 1,000-mile run and stay in the Midwest. And I've just been trying to stay in the Midwest. This is clearly the best market in the entire U.S. So staying here is fine, but as a result, I've been having issues finding somewhat longer loads, and that's why the mileage is low, the revenue is somewhat low, and the rate per mile is high, or fairly high for this market. I get this is not good, period, but it's fairly high for this market. So that's what we're doing. That's a big caveat for this week. Just low mileage, high rate per mile. That's pretty much how this week went. Everything else pretty standard. My fuel bill is high. I'm guessing it's high just because I started the week empty. So I'm guessing this fuel up right here was largely due to last week's running. So I'm guessing I just started the week empty, and that's why this fuel expense is quite high. No maintenance expense, so that was nice. And then not much else. I mean, tolls. Yeah, I ran through Pennsylvania, or is that this week? No, okay. I don't know what these tolls are for. I just get a bill and it just comes out of automatically. I got a pre-pass, easy pass thing, so they just come out automatically. So it is what it is. Tolls, parking, some tools. I don't remember what the tool was, to be honest, but yeah, little stuff like that. The big one is tools, and that's about it. Yeah, and then fixed costs, kind of same story. Nothing huge. DAT subscription, truck stop subscription, email, little stuff like that. $200. Yeah. Yeah, and then if you look at things, it's a good week. $2,800, $1.50 per mile on only 1,800-mile runs, so not complaining too much. No major expenses came in this week, so that was obviously helpful. But yeah, I mean, again, probably better to run slightly longer, higher revenue loads than do this, but this is just what happened. Again, it wasn't intentional. I didn't intentionally run this way. That's just sort of what I ended up doing. So that is week 31. And now let's go ahead and move on to week 32. For week 32, we did 3 loads. In those 3 loads, we drove 1,619 miles, paid a total of $3,600 at $2.25 per mile. Fuel expense, we fueled up 2 times. In those 2 times, we paid $527 at 33 cents per mile, and there were no maintenance expenses. Other expenses, tolls $241, scales $29, tools $63 for a total of $334 at 21 cents per mile. Fixed costs, APU payment came in at $418 for a total of 26 cents per mile. Totals for week 32, total expenses were $1,279 at 79 cents per mile. Total revenue was $3,600 at $2.25 per mile. That brought our net settlement to $2,370 at $1.46 per mile. All right, caveats for week 32. Same thing as last week. Not much mileage at all, not much revenue, but there's a big caveat here, which I didn't mention before, is I did something I almost never do when I'm on the road. And I know I'm going to hear about it in the comments section, but I'm going to say it anyway. I took a day off. Yep, you heard that right. I took a day off. I was just not feeling it, not getting any good loads, and I went ahead. The weather was perfect. The trees were starting to turn colors. And I was looking around just going, you know what, the weather is so nice right now, and I'm having trouble finding a load. I was actually in Wisconsin, and I just went, I'm going to take a day off. And that's what I ended up doing. So there is a day off in this. If I had gotten another load, maybe I could bring this up to 2,300 miles, whatever. But I decided not to. I took a whole day off. You caught me. So that's what's going on here. It's just a day missing. But even so, with that day missing, it's still okay. Obviously, low mileage. Revenue is probably about $1,000 short, and rate per mile is whatever. So that's what's going on here. I took a day off. I'm sure I'll see it in the comment section. Yeah, and then other than that, not too much to talk about this week. Fuel expense was totally normal. Other expenses, totally normal. Tolls and all that good stuff. APU payment came in, $418. That was not a big deal. And pretty standard week in terms of expenses goes. I mean, in this one, again, I just took that day off, but we still had a pretty good week. $2,300, $1.46 per mile. You know, if I could do that every week, I'd be pretty happy at this point in this market. So that's okay. So that's week 32. One day missing, about $1,000 of revenue missing, but that's what's going on there. So now let's go ahead and move on to the overalls. All right, total since starting my own authority, we have driven a total of 76,000 miles. Total expenses have been $85,000 at $1.12 per mile, and that is my cost per mile. Total revenue has been $142,000 at $1.86 per mile. That brings our total profit loss to $56,000 at 74 cents per mile, and all of these loads are dry van. Averages and other information. Average weekly paycheck is $1,700. Average weekly miles is 2,300 miles. Total fuel costs have been $32,000 at 42 cents per mile, and we pay an average of $3.33 per gallon. Total maintenance costs have been $21,000 at 28 cents per mile. If we kept this up for a 52-week period, we would make $90,000 and drive 122,000 miles. Total revenue has been $142,000 at $4,300 per week. Total deadhead has been 6,500 miles at 8% of total mileage. We've been employed 227 days, or 32 weeks, taken 19 days off, 196 days on duty, taken 89 total loads. Average load length is 858 miles. And if we had a theoretical $500 per week truck payment, we would have made $40,000 at 53 cents per mile. Okay, so looking at things, last week this was at 71 cents per mile, so that's kind of interesting. I had a pretty good couple of weeks here. So that's not, I mean, that's still bad, but things are getting a little bit better, I guess. So the market did something pretty interesting in September, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the van demand and capacity, DAT van demand capacity, load to truck ratio. I was doing market updates on this, but what I discovered is that the actual DAT information isn't all that good, and it kind of, it's hard to brief it on a monthly basis because some of the information is just, it doesn't show a lot. But one thing very interesting I did note, so this shows van load to truck ratio per month, right? So red is 2023, green is 2024, and then this orange line here is 2025. So load to truck ratios have been they've been better than the last few years. But then if you notice, I noticed something very interesting that I wanted to mention here. If you look at kind of historical averages, right? In August, the load to truck ratio tends to go down, so it tends to reverse, right? In 2023, it declined, and in 2024, it also declined. But 2025, for whatever reason, went up. See how it went up here? Quite significantly, actually. Whereas traditionally, it goes down, right? So things kind of go down in August, and then they kind of flatline for September, and then November, and then for Christmas, things just shoot way up, right? So this is the December, November is the good, that's the best market of the year. But I found it very interesting that for August to September, it went up. See that? It went up rather than down. And I wish this thing would go away, but I can't. You could see it, right? You could see it right there. You see how the red line kind of went down and then the green line went down? But this year, it went up. So that's fascinating. Wanted to show that because things went a little bit better this week. Besides when I was in Ohio specifically, things went better. I mean, yes, my mileage was low, right? So low mileage here. I took a day off though. Low mileage here. So I was taking some shorter loads, but things went a little bit better this week and the week before, and the data seems to be indicating things are getting a little bit better. And I got to be honest, I'm specifically subscribing that, or I think the reason for that is because they're cracking down on these foreign drivers. It is. I think that's what's going on here. They're starting to kick these foreign drivers out. If you don't speak English, you're getting put out of service. This is sending carriers, their CSA score or whatever is going through the roof. So every time a carrier gets a out of service order for non-English language proficiency. That hurts their score, their what's it called, the CSA score, the driver CSA score. It hurts the company that hired that person. They get higher insurance rates, and it looks really bad on them. So I think that's helping. And then recently with the emergency order from Sean Duffy, I think that's helping. I think these guys are starting to bleed out of the market, and we'll see how it goes in the next couple of weeks. But maybe this is just wishful thinking. Maybe this is just optimism. But I also have been reading some reports in the last couple of days since I'm filming this. The market, specifically for dry van and reefer, which is where these foreign drivers tend to be, started to spike pretty significantly. Is what I saw. These are just some reports I'm reading. I don't know if it's 100% true, but it looks like maybe things are starting to turn around a little bit here. Okay, this did go last week. It was at 71 cents per mile. This week it's at 73 cents per mile, but I didn't have any maintenance expenses or anything like that, so it's notable. Again, this is still not good. This is really bad. 74 cents per mile as an owner operator running your own authority with a paid off truck is just, it's laughable, right? This is just laughable. This is I'm not bragging about this, right? This is almost embarrassing. I'm just showing you guys my numbers here, right? 74 cents, just atrocious. That's atrocious, right? But maybe things are starting to improve. That's what I'm getting at here. Maybe things are starting to get a little bit better. We'll see. This week and last week went pretty okay. Again, low mileage but high revenue. We'll see what happens. Wisconsin is on fire right now, which is where I currently am. Indiana seems to be doing very well. Illinois is doing very well. Michigan is doing very well. So hopefully things get a little bit better here. But we'll see what happens. I mean, DAT showing that increase in September, which is not normal, was a very good sign. And then this week just went a little bit better. So we'll see. But I am optimistic. But yeah, going through some of the other stuff, what's to say? So far, things have not been going well. This year is just not looking good at all. $1,700 per week average weekly paycheck is just really bad. That's just terrible. Maintenance expenses been hurting a lot. 28 cents per mile. Okay, it is what it is. If I kept it up for an entire year, I'd make $90,000. But with a paid off truck, that's not good at all, right? I mean, I'm basically you got to minus probably $10,000 to $15,000 for truck replacement from this number. So if you look at it that way, it's more like $80,000 per year at the current rate. So that's not good. It needs to get better, right? It needs to get better. But yeah, that's what's going on there. Revenue per week is $4,300. That does include time off. So if you put the time off, out of there, maybe it goes up to $5,000. Again, not great. But it is what it is. Yeah. So if I had a $500 per week truck payment, I would have made $40,000 at 53 cents per mile. That's not good. So if you guys are, watching this video and you're like, hey, maybe I'll get in the market, but you're gonna have it you're gonna take out a bank loan for a truck payment, you would be making way less than company driver pay right now. So just be aware of that. And if you want to enter it, and just hopefully the market gets better, and you're just positioning yourself, I guess you could try that, right? There's definitely an argument to be made to just go buy a truck right now, get into the market, get everything rolling, and then hopefully by next year the market improves. However, that is exactly what I did. So I entered the market about 2 years ago is really when I started to get into the market. So I started lease operating for night transportation. When was it? October of 2023. So I did it October of 2023 thinking, all right, I'm going to get in when the market is really bad, get things rolling, get some experience, right? And then by the time I move on to Landstar, which was 2024, things will start to improve. And then after Landstar, I'll get my own authority, which is what I did right now. And by 2025, which is right now, things should get better. And they just didn't. It just stayed flat. It just flatlined for the last 2 years. So I don't control that, right? The market just flatlined. But that was my thinking when I originally got into this. It's all right, what's that Warren Buffett quote, right? Be greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. So I'm all right, trucking market's in the trash. People are being fearful. I'm going to be a little bit greedy here and go for it. And so far, it has not paid off. Now, maybe it'll pay off next year. Right? I don't know. Right? I don't control the market. But, if you wanted to try it, you wanted to enter now, it might not be a bad time if you can withstand maybe another year of $1.86 per mile. So that's where we're at. However, I am thinking, I'm a little bit more optimistic. The ELP seems to be having some effect, I'm guessing. And then with this recent banning of the non-domicile CDL holders, that will have an effect. That is going to have an effect. How long it's going to take is the question, right? At a certain point, all of these non-domicile CDL holders their licenses are going to expire, and then they are going to be out of the market. They're done, right? It's just a matter of how long it takes. And a matter of just one of the things, the states are supposed to be was deissuing, downgrading these non-domicile CDL holders who don't have the right paperwork. I don't know if they're actually going to enforce that. I really hope they do, and I really hope they just start looking through all these non-domicile CDL holders and go, no, you don't have the right paperwork, you're out, and just start, downgrading all these guys. But I don't know if they're actually going to do that, right? I can't help but feel California is not going to do that, right? Maybe Texas will, right? Maybe places like Wyoming or, stuff like that will, but I can't help but feel the biggest culprit of this problem, California, is not going to enforce that. So we'll see, but eventually they will start bleeding out, and hopefully by next year things start to get better. But that'll pretty much do it for this episode. If you're interested in this spreadsheet or any of the other spreadsheets I've done in the past, they're available in the About section down below. After you find them, just click File, Download, and then you could download them to a Microsoft Excel sheet, and then you're free to use them however you please. If you need a factoring company, there is OTR Solutions, which is what I use. I use both their factoring service and their fuel card, so both work really well, and I would highly recommend them. There's a link in the About section down below. If you want to use them, please use that link. It does help me out a ton. And if you want to support my work, there's another link for Buy Me a Coffee. It's just a way for you to pitch me $5, $10, whatever dollars to just support my work. Really helpful. YouTube does take a significant amount of the super chats or any of the other donations you might do, so Buy Me a Coffee is like 2%, so it's a lot better. So if you're interested in supporting me, just throw me $5 or whatever. I'd really appreciate it. But that will pretty much do it for this episode. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.